Hi, I'm Sasha from The Autism Helper, and in this episode of the mini video training series, I'm going to talk about my tips for running a great IEP meeting. The IEP meeting is an important step in a teacher's relationship with the parents of the student, and it's important to spend some time really thinking about how our behavior communicates things to the parents. And I think sometimes we do things that are unintentional and send maybe the wrong message to mom and dad. So I want to share some of my go-to favorite tips on making sure the IEP meeting runs really smoothly, but also that you start your relationship with your students' parents on a great foot, and you make sure that the parents really feel like they're a meaningful and important member of the team, as they are. So the first thing, getting started. I recommend making sure to greet the parents right when they walk in the room. This is a common mistake. Everyone's busy and talking and in the middle of something, and sometimes the secretary or the clerk might bring mom and dad in and people don't notice, and they start off the meeting feeling uncomfortable. So you want to make sure that you let them feel comfortable and help them feel welcome from the second they walk in the door, and greet them right away. Sometimes meetings don't start right away. You might be waiting for another team member or finishing up some paperwork. Explain that. We can't expect people to read our minds, and if there's, quiet conversation and different things going on, the parents might not understand, is the meeting started? Should I say something? So if the meeting isn't getting going that minute, explain that. Say, oh, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Thomas, thanks so much for coming. We're just waiting for the OT to come. So, relax for a few minutes and we'll get started. So just simple things like that, I think, can start the meeting off on the right foot. Next are introductions. Typically, this is a case manager's job. I know in some states and some school districts, the special ed teacher serves as a case manager. But make sure that introductions happen. If you as the teacher or clinician feel uncomfortable because maybe your case manager misses this step a lot or forgets this step, it's okay. Be the one to initiate this. Don't feel like you're stepping on anyone's toes, because the introductions really need to happen. There's likely new team members that the parents might not know. And these are people that are telling these parents about their child, which is weird. So you want to make sure that mom and dad know who everyone at the table is. So let's say your case manager forgets introductions. Be polite, be respectful, but step in and say, oh, you know what, real quick, let's just run and do some introductions because, the speech pathologist is new this year and I want to make sure you meet her. Maybe your case manager won't like that, but do that. It will make mom and dad feel a lot more comfortable and know who's all there at the table. Next, make sure to start with the positives. I know we all know this, but sometimes we get rushed or there's a busy schedule, and I get it, but make sure that you always start with the student strengths and celebrate those and live there for a minute, and share some little details and anecdotes, bring work samples. Mom and dad will be excited to see that. So always start with the strengths and the positive. Next, when you get into the meeting, stay off your computer. This is a hard one. I know. We have a lot of IEP meetings. As a clinician, especially, clinicians have tons and tons of IEP meetings. And yes, they have other work to work on, but make sure you come to the meeting, first of all, with your portion of the IEP complete, so you're not working on the IEP during the meeting. I know that there are some parts of the IEP that you will need to type on. Say that to mom and dad. Like, hey, I'm going to type in your concerns right now so they know what you're doing. Then when it's not your turn, close your computer, close it halfway, and listen. Listen to the other clinicians talk. Listen to the other team members talk. Make sure that the other team members know that you're giving them your attention. Don't check your email. Don't sneak on Facebook. This isn't something I think we do intentionally, but sometimes, you start doing stuff on the computer and all of a sudden you're on Pinterest looking at crockpot recipes. And it's just rude. That's all. It's pure rude. And it is communicating to the parents who took time off of their job, who took time away from their day and made the trip to school. You're communicating to them that you don't care. And you do care. But your behavior is communicating that. Last year, I went to an IEP meeting as a consultant, and the special ed director came, and she spent the entire meeting, besides the 2 minutes that she talked, loudly typing away on her computer. And I could feel the parent next to me, her blood was boiling. She just got angrier and angrier and angrier as the meeting went on. And I did too, because it communicated so loudly to us that, hey, I don't have time for this and I don't care about this. Then don't be at the meeting if that's how it feels. So make sure, as tempting as it is and as much as you have on your plate, do not do other work. Do not do other things at your computer. Maybe other people do it, but be the good example. When it's your turn and you need to read off the computer, literally narrate what you're doing. Like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Thomas, I'm just gonna pull out my computer right now so I can read you the goals, read them the goals, ask them if they have any questions, and then close your computer. It sends such a great message that you are there, you are present, you are attending. Now, when you're sharing your IEP goals or the present levels, don't just read verbatim off of the screen or off of your paper. Turn to the parents and just make it a conversation. You wrote those goals. You wrote those areas of needs. You know this kid. So just make it conversational and explain that just like you would if you were talking to mom and dad over the phone. Don't read it verbatim. Also, when you're explaining different parts of the IEP or different parts of the goals, make sure to avoid acronyms or any overly technical special ed talk. I know when we're with our colleagues or team members or clinicians, we use acronyms a lot, we use different terminology a lot, and just remember that not everyone might understand what those mean. Those terms are ones that we use frequently, but mom and dad don't talk about the LRE on a regular basis. So even though they come to IEP meetings every year, they might not remember what that meant. So make sure to, if you're using some of that language, to always be explaining what you're talking about. And if you catch yourself using a lot of acronyms, kind of pump the brakes and slow down and be like, oh, I just said FBA. Let me explain what that means. And then don't just say what the FBA stands for. Explain exactly what that means and why you're talking about it. And really continue this process of providing a detailed explanation at every turn. Like, okay, now we're going to talk about the minutes, and let me explain really quick what consult minutes mean. So consult minutes means that the SLP will talk to me, the teacher, and we'll work on strategies to work on together in the classroom. So even for your students that are maybe 18 years old and you think, oh, well, mom and dad have been going to IEP meetings for 15 years, still explain that time and time again. Because you might be setting up a situation where the parents maybe don't understand something but don't feel comfortable asking. And they feel like maybe they should know what's going on and they don't. And we've all been there. And it stinks to be in that situation. Think about the last time you went to the mechanic. They came out, they looked at your car, and they told you something about, I don't know, the engine, the carburetor, I don't even know. And you probably just smiled and nodded and said, okay, please fix it. And you didn't know what they were talking about. Or if you go to an accountant or a financial advisor, they might use terms that you've heard before, but you don't really truly know what they mean. And you might not feel like you need to ask or feel comfortable to ask. So avoid putting mom and dad in that situation because it doesn't feel good to feel uncomfortable or feel like you don't know what's going on, especially when it comes to your own kid. So explain all terminology, avoid jargon, avoid acronyms. And if you catch people on the team doing that, because there's many people that speak in an IEP meeting, you don't need to be rude or disrespectful, like I said before, but maybe after that team member is finished talking, just be like, oh, you know what, real quick, I know she was talking about receptive and expressive language. Sometimes I get confused on that, so let me just explain what that means and just kind of put the onus back on you too and provide those detailed explanations. So ask the parents if they have questions or input or anything to change repeatedly throughout the IEP meeting. So maybe even after each team member gives their piece, ask again, hey, does that sound good? Does that make sense? Is there anything you'd like to add? Sometimes maybe after parents become more comfortable, they might have an idea. So just continue to give those opportunities for input. As a teacher or as a clinician on the team, like I said before, listen to other team members. Close your computer, pay attention, take any notes. Everyone is a professional and they took time to prepare information for this meeting. So treat them like a professional and pay attention when they talk. Overall, just remember that these parents, mom and dad, are valuable and important and essential members of the team. They know their kid the best. They are the experts on Johnny, and they are the most important one to help give and help keep this team together and give information. So make sure Johnny's mom and dad know that you are the expert on your kid, and treat them like the expert on their kid. And I know through the school year we get tired as teachers. We have a lot on our plate. We have a lot of IEP meetings. So towards the end of the year, when you're on your, what feels like 300th IEP meeting of the year, keep in mind that for Johnny's mom and dad that are coming to that meeting, this isn't their 300th IEP meeting of the year. This is their one IEP meeting of the year. And this is their baby. This is their life. So treat each meeting like it would be for your child, and give it that much respect and value mom and dad's input that much, just like it was you sitting in their shoes. And I think if we as teachers and clinicians can do this at every meeting, we will set up such a great year, because it will start the year as a collaborative team with the parents as a meaningful member of that team. Not parents versus school, but everyone working together for the best interests of their kids. And I know that's what you all want to communicate. So make sure that everything you're doing in the meeting is aligned with those values and what you're trying to say to those parents. So thanks for watching this episode of the mini video training series. I'm Sasha from theautismhelper.com.